Without further ado, let's bring in now your former teammate with the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, spent a couple seasons as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs, now a Nashville Predators analyst. It's the one and only bag chucker himself, Hal Gill. What's up, Skillsy?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. How you doing, Rosie? You beauty?
Skill Rex. It's been too long, man. Oh,
what a beauty.
We had a year there where neither of us were playing too much, and we had Eric Gustafson with us too, and we called ourselves the Ghost Riders. I think because he thought it was Ghost Riders instead of Black Aces or something like that. Fuck, we were laughing, but play with a guy like Skillsy who's got like 1,100 games in the show, and he was old school dude, and he'd teach you, you get off the plane, you chuck your duffel bag in the hotel, you go out and you have a beer and see what's going on in that city. Then you meet up with the boys, have dinner with the fellas. And then if you're not playing the next night, you go kind of sniff out a spot to see a little bit of nightlife. And be in as many games in the show as this man had. He knew all the spots and all the cities, and it was great to ride his coattails there for a year.
I was riding yours, buddy. No, we had a good time. Wish we could have played some more, but when you're not playing, you get to enjoy other things.
That's right.
Skillsy, I got to ask you first and foremost. So I was out with Rosie, I guess, a couple weeks ago in Edmonton. We were there for work, and this guy was like a human energy drink. Was he the same type of guy in person, taking a peek, green light special, where he's just bouncing off the walls? Same guy or what?
Absolutely. There's always something going on in Rosie's world. When we walk into a place, here, look, he's got to scout it out. Where are we going to stand? Where are we going to sit? Like, what's the best spot at the bar? There's people over there. They look like they're fun. Let's go talk to them. We'll go hang out with them. And then, you get sick and tired of that. Look over. There's other people over there. Let's go hang out with them. Hey, let's go to the next spot. What's the next spot? Where are we going? It was
I get excited.
High energy, a lot of laughs. We had some good times.
Oh, yeah, the guy's a legend. We've worked together since October. He even came down to Toronto in January. I took him for a peek at Two Cats on King West. I don't know if you ever frequented that spot as a Maple Leaf. Do you ever go there?
Yeah, yes, I have been there. My spot was the Underground. The Underground was my spot for a long time. But,
Rosie and I discussed that.
I think
too,
I have
Rosie?
been there.
We've been everywhere.
I will say when Rosie was going out, he had the flow. He had some good flow back in the day, right, Rosie? You had the the second he walked in, everyone was looking, who is this guy? Because he had the Prince Charming flow, and he could blow up and blow his hair back into place. It was beautiful, beautiful coif. So the second we walked in, we didn't have to go see anyone. A lot of times people are coming to see Rosie.
This is a tire pumping special. I didn't realize. I think he deflects all the attention onto me so that we don't talk about you too much, do we there, Skillsy, baby?
That's a veteran move. Veteran move.
Well, let's talk about the Maple Leafs, man. Yeah. Obviously, this is Maple Leaf-centric show, and, they're in a position to go on a little run here. You've been in that market. You've played for many markets, many teams, and you've gone the distance with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't think a lot of people know, but in 2009, when it was that last face-off to win the Stanley Cup, and Marc-Andre Fleury kind of made that, what do they call it, the Secret Service save or whatever. Skillsy, you were out there for that, so obviously a very, very important part of that team.
It wasn't my guy. It wasn't my guy.
Yeah, that's fine. You made
that was Lidstrom.
Clear.
That was the point coverage.
Of course. But what's it take to go deep, and what do you think of this team? Have you been watching them? What are they lacking? What in your experience, what is that secret thing that allows you to go deep and get those big wins to move on in the series and whatnot?
Yeah, you know what the thing is you need everything. I've talked to people about that. Yeah, you can have the best player in the NHL. Someone along the line, some team is going to find a way to shut them down. You have to go 4 series, and so. Yeah, you can have Matthews and Marner. They look great, and you put Yarncroke on that line. I think that makes them a good defensive line as well. So I like that line, but someone's going to stop them. And you're going to have Nylander. Someone's going to get in his grill and beat him up. So you need to have that depth. And I think you talked about O'Reilly coming in as the third center. That's big, because he can contribute. And you were talking about the 2009 Penguins. Remember who the hero was? Game 7? Max Talbot, there was a hero in that. You know, we had Malkin, we had Crosby, you know, all these superstars, and Max Talbot was the hero of that game. You need to have that depth. And so looking at some of the additions that the Leafs made, I think, of course, Schenner, I love that guy, and he'll go out and fight for guys. He'll be punishing. He was physical against the Preds last night. I saw that many a time. You know, adding McCabe, I think those guys, you need to have that solid. I know it's sexy to have a puck moving defenseman, and that's great and all, but in the playoffs, you got to protect the front of the net, and those guys will be big. So, you know, my question is goaltending. Is that's got to be huge. You need a guy to step up, and you never know when that's going to happen. When a goalie's going to go on a heater. I was in Montreal when Jarro Halak went on a heater, and he got us into three rounds in, you know, and so not that he was the superstar, but he stepped up at the right time. So you're going to need that.
What was your read on Joseph Woll last night? Obviously, you've had the luxury of covering a guy like UC Saros, who is not really spoken about enough, in my opinion, but one of the premier netminders in this league.
Yeah. I thought he looked good. You know, I mean, he's not coming in with a resume. You know, I think it's hard for goalies to come in. I know when I was coming up and I didn't have a book on guys, it's, you know, you don't know what's coming at you. And, you know, he might have had a better shot knowing what was going on with Nashville, because most of them are Milwaukee guys that just got called up after the trade deadline. So might have had a better pulse on it. But, you know, that's it's tough to jump into that situation when you don't know what's coming at you. And, you know, right? Like Rosie, I found out, you know, like there's times you find out someone's a lefty and you're like, can someone give me the notes on that guy? You know, like that, and they surprise you. And so, you know, I thought Wall looked good.
Yeah. And sometimes you find out like that a guy is capable of doing things because he comes in untested, unknown, unprepared in a lot of people's minds, and they produce, you know, and that's how guys get a name for themselves and earn contracts and become number one starters. Everyone comes from something. And, you know, if Joseph Woll does get thrown in there, he's shown over his career that he's nothing but solid and nothing but getting better and has nothing but potential. So if something does happen where he gets chucked in, you know, all of a sudden he makes a name for himself and wins a series, and off this guy goes. So yeah, a good point that you never know what's going to happen, but you got to do your homework on people and be prepared for that time to jump out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the fun part about, you know, the playoffs. You know, you make an adjustment. You know, and you say, okay, you go in as a team and you know, coach gives you adjustments. I'm not talking about that. Every team is going to do that, but the best players are the ones that can say, okay, I've tried to beat this guy wide over and over again. I can't beat him wide. I'm going to have to stop up. I'm going to have to cut back. I'm going to have to change my game. And, you know, for me defensively, I'm waiting to see what the next thing. If I keep stopping a guy down the boards, I'm waiting for that next play. What's the next thing he's going to do? And you have, you know, 7 games to think about it. That's where I think the Leafs are going to be tested. Is can they make those adjustments? Can those players that are really hard to stop, once they start getting stopped over, you know, in game 4 or game 5, can they make that adjustment to win it in game 7? And that's the big challenge, because it's fine line between winning and losing. It could be that one play, and if you set up a guy, drive him wide, and then, you know, get him on the wrong pivot and cut back, and you get a scoring chance, you score a goal, that wins you a game. And that's what I miss about playoff hockey. That's my favorite part of it, is that mind game.
Yeah, and the margin for error, as you guys know, is just razor thin. And I think even looking at this Maple Leafs team, you just referenced it, Skillsy, like the legends you've played with, the Crosbys, the Malkins, the Letangs that finally pushed through, right? It took a bit of time. So with that in mind, you look at the Maple Leafs big boys. I mean, without question, Austin Matthews, one of the best players on the planet. Mitch Marner's been unbelievable this season. Nylander's been great. Tavares has been great in his own right as well. Like, there's just so many pieces on that roster, but what's your read on them? Like, how do they get to that next level? How do they finally push through in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Well, just looking through the decor looks good. I mean, I don't remember ever saying that, you know, like that's
true.
That's a good solid decor. I you know what I mean? I think they fell apart after they traded me. So it was, no, they look, I mean, you look up and down, it looks good. And You know what? The big thing for me is, Nola Chari is that guy. That's your X factor, I think. If you're going to play against Boston, and or the Lightning, it looks like the Lightning in the first round. You're going to play them. He's going to be an impact player. He's going to do all the dirty work. He's going to be the guy. I think pickups like that are almost better than the exciting O'Reilly trade. Like the O'Reilly is a big one, but when you throw Nola Chari out there fighting, blocking shots, doing all the gritty hard work and beating a third or fourth line, I think that's the difference maker. So just going up and down the lineup, I think you have a good mix of all that talent. It's just, can that talent perform? That's what you're looking for. And that's what, right? I mean, Toronto's been looking for the game changer when it happens. They're Dougie Gilmour. Who's their guy that's going to go out there and make the difference when it counts?
Yeah, and I think since post deadline, like you nailed it, all these guys could be these X factors, and I think they filled holes where they were lacking. And now what I want to see, you go into the playoffs. Are you going to take control of the game? Are you going to dominate? It feels like the Leafs of the past, they've been this good team on paper, 115 points in the regular season, blah, blah, blah. But people are constantly talking about the holes in their lineup, and then they get into a playoff series, and like you say, a couple of guys get shut down, team takes it to them a little hard, and everyone just kind of stands and looks around and says, oh boy, like, who's going to take control of this? And then you have a hiccup in 10 minutes where no one steps up and you get 2 goals scored on you, and you're behind the 8 ball already. And this team, I think they got the firepower and the pieces in place, but are they going to show up, and are they going to take control, or are they going to stand and watch and react to what happens to them? Or are they going to be the guys that go out and say, this is our identity, this is how we fucking play, we're going to put teams on their heels and play that intense style of playoff hockey? I really would like to see that come game 1, and that's why I've been talking. I want them to get their lines and their D partners rolling here going into it, so they can establish that amongst themselves and just roll like a train right into those playoffs. And I think we saw it on the weekend, maybe starting to solidify some lines and some D partners and stuff. But man, was it ever a carousel of personnel coming in and out of the lineup and in and out of the lines. And it was just, I think we got to get away from that here.
Yeah, that's always the hard part when you make these trades and you add in different faces. Where do they fit in? And how do you is someone going to have instant chemistry? And what happens if they don't? Do you wait for it because that was the spot you wanted to fill, or do you have to go and change it? I think that's the challenge. And for a lot of times, when I was on teams, I'm like, please don't go try to add too much, or don't try to. I feel like every time I got traded, I was just kind of a piece. I wasn't like the superstar that everyone was looking to score big goals. You want to fill holes, and you want guys that can kind of be utility guys that can fit in. And I think that's, for the most part, looking at what the Leafs have done, that's been what they've been looking at. But the hard part is, like, you were just talking about it, and I was reminded of Montreal. Like Montreal a couple of years ago, like they had no right going in. They just had big defense. Shea Weber, Carey Price played well. Like that wasn't a flashy team. They weren't. They just went out and battled. And you got to get through teams like that. And like you said, Rosie, can these guys power through a team like that? That's just going to lock it down and be big and strong in front of the net. And can you find a way to get scoring chances? That's where. I mean, Austin Matthews, is he going to step up and just because he's big? Every time I see him, it's a big boy. He's solid. Like you go on to him in the corner and he can bully you. He's not a skilled, dainty player. He's solid. So I think a guy like him can he change the game with his physical style and his skill?
There's got to be belief. There's got to be no doubt seeped into the mind. And seriously, obviously it's a conversation where it's like, yeah, it's one thing to say it, it's another to prove it. But I wanted to ask you too, the big question. You live obviously in the Nashville area. How often are you at Tootsie's, or is there another area for locals?
There's local areas. Yeah.
Okay.
I try to stay away from Broadway because the thing is you go down to Broadway and 3:00 comes pretty quick. It's like, whoa, I just came down for a couple, and then I like this band, and then you hang out and have a couple with that band, and then someone says, let's go listen to this band. Next thing you know, you're bouncing around Tootsie's, the Legends, the Whiskey Row, and so yeah, I have a lot of buddies that come in and they say, how do you live here? And I don't live on Broadway. You know, like I live 15 minutes outside, and I have a family, and you know, there's a normal life here. But it's nice. It's always nice to have it. It's always nice to have it in your backyard if you need it.